I call this Touring the Web number 11. Now, Touring the Web is a follow-on program. I've been doing this since 2005. Um, I did like every other month for quite a few years, and so this is actually the 81st edition of this program where I'd go through the web and come up with what I found were interesting sites and videos and strange things and so forth. But I changed the name a while back, and so this is the 11th one under the name of Touring the Web, which is a little more appropriate than the original name was, which was Special Topics. So first of all, and one of the things I do every day when I research, I don't research, I just read little articles and things on Flipboard and various other places. And among other things, I read the comics. And this is one of the ones I read, and ran across this before the election, which I thought was kind of appropriate. Guy comes up to the polling place and he said, "Hey, I'm here to vote." And the person manning the polling place said, "Sure, but before you do, quick question. How many branches of government can you name?" "Don't know, don't care." "Okay, no problem. Here's your ballot. Your voting booth is that porta potty around the corner. Just drop your completed ballot down the hole." He says, "I'm doing my part for democracy," right? He's want to make sure that you got an informed electorate. This guy is going to have a vote that doesn't go anywhere. Now, this is going to be many different topics in one piece here. So we're starting off with the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. This goes back to a 2015 air show demonstration when they were really trying to show off this plane quite a lot. They did what was not quite a vertical takeoff. They made it look kind of, in the video, looks kind of like a vertical takeoff, but pretty impressive anyway. The plane belonged to Vietnam Airlines for whatever reason, and it had many, many views. Looks like the plane almost lifts off by itself, but let me let the video show for itself. Now, let me know if you hear some music on this one. Otherwise, I'm going to have to restart the share. Are you hearing a little music?
Not yet.
No.
No.
Okay. Let me do this and then share again. This time I'm going to stop the share, and then I'm going to share, and I'm going to remember to click the button that says share sound, and screen one. Whoops, can't do that. Okay, I'm going to now have to do this. And share. Share sound. All right, are you seeing that screen again?
Yes.
Back to that video. And started, hopefully you should hear a little sound. I set it fairly low volume.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Not quite a vertical takeoff, but it would have felt pretty good to be in there, I think. It was kind of fun. Serious maneuvers going on there. So I only showed part of the video. There's more to it when you look at it online. Reminds me of a time I used to go, and when I was working for IBM, I used to commute between San Jose and Orange County. And if I got a late flight out of Orange County heading back to San Jose, they had sound restrictions on the airport. They could not have certain amount of sound after a certain point. So what had happened is the plane would take off and go into an extremely steep climb for the first 1,000 feet or so, and then level off abruptly. And now we're flying quietly and slow as we go in over the coast, which is now on fire, by the way. It would not be able to do that right at the moment. That particular area is completely on fire. But they had very strict sound requirements, and couldn't just roar out of the airplane, out of the airport over those towns. You had to get up and over. So a little bit about OneDrive. OneDrive is something that always drives me kind of crazy. I do not like OneDrive. It just seemed to make a lot of messes until I figured out what it is. And now I'm just working on getting rid of it. OneDrive is not a backup solution. So if you think OneDrive is backing up your files to the cloud, then you're not understanding what it is. It's a synchronization. It makes a mirror of what's on your disk to the OneDrive. So it's file synchronization. If you put something in one, it goes to the other. If you want, and vice versa. If you take one off your computer, it goes away from the cloud, and vice versa. So keep in mind that if you have those files in both places, and some people would say, like, I uploaded to the cloud, I deleted them on my computer, and the damn thing deleted the online copy. Now the file's gone. Well, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work, because it's a synchronization. It's not a backup. So if you put your files on your computer and let OneDrive upload them to OneDrive, and you delete them from your computer, it'll delete them from OneDrive. Synchronization. So get something else for your online storage, for your cloud storage. I use iDrive myself. I think iDrive is one of the best. So that's my, and it's not expensive. So, and it's reliable. So I've got one iDrive account that both myself and my wife back up to. When I first got that account, they sent me a disk. I copied all my photographs onto it. I had a huge number of photographs. They sent me a disk with a return label. I put all my photos on the disk, send it back to them, and a couple of days later, they were all online. Much better than uploading. I still think they do that. Speaking of photos, there's iconic photos from each decade of the 20th century. This is just some that I ran across a site that had all these individual images indicated. In the mid-1820s, Joseph, his last name I will not pronounce, was standing in an upstairs window on his estate in Burgundy, France. And his hand, he held a primitive camera. I doubt if it was in his hand. I suspect it was something too big for that. But 8 hours exposure, and he got what's called a view from the window. So that was the first of a new media called photography. Here is that first photo. So if you knew what it looked like, you can tell what this is. But obviously, there's part of a building, part of another building. There's like a roof here. So this is a little bit rough compared to what we have now. It's about 0 megapixels. But then as things went along here, getting into the 20th century, here is a nice, and these are just specific pictures selected for each century. First flight, 1903, obviously one of the very most important images in the early 1900s. 1911. Now we're in the second decade of the 20th century. The Breaker Boys, showing the issue of all of the child labor. Imagine all of these young kids not getting an education, but instead working as laborers at that age, and you wonder how long they're going to live with the diseases and malnutrition and everything. This one is a famous photograph from 1924, and it got famous partly because It set a record in 2022 when it sold for $12.4 million. Some photographs have sold for a tremendous amount of money, and this is one of them that was an early one. Very simple photograph, just these things added onto the back, and $22 million. Now here's one of the type I've seen several of, and I'm not particularly comfortable looking at over heights anymore and climbing ladders and looking at, some of the precipices out here in Arizona. And this one to me would be a no-go. I would probably end up dying of starvation rather than getting my living by doing this particular job. And I've seen some others that were equally as awfully scary. So, boy, you'd sure have to have a good balance and not be afraid of heights and not sneeze or anything. Raising the flag in 1945. That's one of the iconic photos, obviously, from the 40s and World War II, 5 years after I was born. And then in the 50s, of course, the segregation and attempting to break the segregation in the South of having the schools segregated and so forth. This is a very famous issue of the Scream, named after this young lady here who is clearly not having any of it. Earthrise, 1968. See, here I joined IBM. And this particular photo got famous, and I found that at one time I had a little house. I bought my first house in Sunnyvale, California. I bought a wallpaper size version of this that I put up on one wall. I had a big blank white wall in my dining room, and I put that picture up on the wall. And at night, there was a skylight in that room, and at night, with it dark outside, if I look and the light on in the room, I'd look up at the skylight and I could see the earth reflected in the skylight. A little bit crazy stuff there in the 1960s. 1974, here's Mr. Nixon giving the V sign. Tiananmen Square in the 80s. Tank Man, famous for that. I guess he probably was jailed and killed, I suppose, for his bravery. So there you go. And then the 1990s, Pillars of Creation with the satellite, when the Hubble telescope got going and started creating these amazing images of the universe.
Tyler?
I beg your pardon? All right, moving on. In the 1930s, a skyscraper was rotated 90 degrees while everyone kept working inside. This sounds like something that out of science fiction, but it actually happened. 1929, Indiana Bell bought Central Union Telephone Company. They were going to tear down the building at an 8-story headquarters. They were going to tear it down, but architect Kurt Vonnegut Sr., the father of the famous author, suggested that they move it to across the lot and rotate it 90 degrees. A fairly high level of work to do, but the 8-story, 11,000-ton building ended up safely in the new position, and nobody was the wiser. And here's a little bit about how that worked.
In 1929, the Indiana Bell Telephone Company purchased the Central Union Telephone Company building in Indianapolis and had plans to demolish the aging 1906 structure. The original plan was to build a much larger headquarters on the site. Indiana Bell hired a famous local Indiana architect for the project. The architect's name was Kurt Vonnegut Sr. of Vonnegut, Bond & Mueller. His son, Kurt Vonnegut Jr., would go on to write the 1969 classic Slaughterhouse-Five. Kurt Vonnegut Sr. soon had other plans. He wanted to move the building. After an extensive study, it was determined that the best use of the site and existing assets would be to move the existing headquarters and pivot it 90 degrees to the back corner of the lot. This innovative plan allowed for a future expansion and construction of a new building fronting on Meridian Street. However, this was no small task, as the 8-story steel frame and brick building measured about 100 by 135 feet. and weighed 11,000 tons. From October 20th to November 14th, 1930, Indiana Bell Telephone Company did something never tried before or since. They pivoted and moved the working central office building. Not only was the building relocated, but the move caused no service outages, and all 600 workers within the building still reported to work every day. Construction crews had to install safety stops in the elevator shafts to make sure safe travel to the basement was no longer possible. Gas, electric power, electric heat, water, and sewage were maintained in the building at all times during the move. All utility cables and pipes serving the building had to be lengthened and made flexible with up to 200 feet of slack to provide continuous service during the move. The building was raised 1/4 inch using 100-ton ratchet screw jacks and placed on rollers. As the mass moved off one roller, workers placed another ahead of it. Each jack was operated by a team of men. Every 6 strokes of the jacks would shift the building 3/8 of an inch, moving at 15 inches per hour. Employees entered and left the traveling structure using a movable passenger walkway that moved with the building. This permitted employees and the public to enter and leave at any time while the move was in progress. The employees reported they never felt the building move, and telephone service went on without interruption. In 1933, a new Indiana Bell telephone building was completed at 240 North Meridian. The old Central Union Telephone Company building can be seen in the back of the lot. In 1963, the old original Central Union Telephone Company building was completely demolished, and by 1968, a new Indiana building was erected, which still stands today.
Sounds like something the ancient Egyptians might have done. They were famous for some amazing architecture, and nobody has done this since then, so what the heck? Now, here's something I found that I thought was kind of interesting. All over the world, people would like to learn different languages. I only speak one language myself. Unfortunately, I would like to know more than one, but I haven't tried to learn one very hard. The only class I failed in college was German. I was in technical classes, and German was important because of the technology connections. But anyway, there are translators now. We've got things we can walk around with a phone and have translated for us, things translate for us. But we like to take a look at a map and see which language each country wants to learn the most, and they vary throughout the world. So take a look here. In North America, Spanish is the most popular foreign language in America, which makes sense considering the Hispanic population. And so in the US, the language most wanted to be learned is Spanish. In Canada, French, because they have a French-speaking province. And so other parts of the North America, Spanish is there. In South America, major portion of South America, English is the one that they would prefer to learn, except for far south, Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, Italian, and Chinese, interestingly, in Venezuela and Guyana, because probably a lot of Chinese influence in there, a lot of Chinese money coming in, doing construction and so forth. Looking at the Middle East and Central Asia, English in a lot of places. So English is the top language, but also Arabic in a number of countries that don't speak Arabic but are near the Arabic speaking areas. So that's just a little view as to what people want to learn. Now, I don't know, do you have In-N-Out Burger franchises in Florida?
No, or I think there's one and they're going to expand.
Well, it's an interesting place. There's one here in Prescott. That's the place we normally go if we're going to go and get junk food. It just seems better than the others. It's fresher vegetables and things. But they have a kind of a weird menu. Their menu pretty much is a single burger, single cheeseburger, double cheeseburger, French fries, and a drink or a shake. That's pretty much it. There's nothing much else on there. So there's a lot of secret things on the menu, several secret things on the menu. Some of them are what's listed here: double meat, 2 patties on a single bun, 3x3 or 4x4 patties, grilled cheese, melted cheese on a bun with no patties, protein style, which are patties wrapped in lettuce and no bun, and animal style, which my wife usually gets, a burger with extra spread, grilled onions, and a patty cooked with mustard. So these are semi-custom. They don't show up on the menu anywhere. If you go to In-N-Out, there's nothing on the menu about these. But there's also been a lot of rumors about strange things. One is Flying Dutchman, 2 plain patties with cheese and an optional onions wrap. So some of these are things that are not really necessarily there, but these are rumored to be. We haven't tried any of these yet. I might try one of them one of these days and see what comes up. But it's just odd to have a restaurant that has the menu without everything on the menu, you would think. The ancient Romans had central heating. We have central heating, we have central cooling and so forth in our modern world, but long, long ago, the Romans had things that, they had a lot of technology that was pretty far forward that disappeared during the Dark Ages for a long time, of course, but they had these things called hypocausts, precursors to central heating. It wouldn't have been able to do any cooling, but used to heat public bathhouses, some private homes and villas and so forth. It's an external furnace called a prefernium, often a wood burning piped in hot air to the area. Look like this. You got a building here, bunch of people were lounging around inside. These are obviously not the poor people in Rome. These are the well-off, wealthy people in Rome. And the fire here, and the heat of the fire is going underneath the house and heating the area down there, coming up through the floor, and therefore heating the house. It required a lot more slaves than we have typically in a U.S. household. So it's a good thing we've got these running by electricity, because we'd otherwise have to hire slaves, have more slaves, and that's not as feasible these days as it used to be. But these 2 guys here, they're working away. All right, if you got like we do, we got rid of the cable stuff and we went all completely to TV on the internet. Now we've got a cable system here, Sparklight cable. We've got a high-speed cable network. So we do all our TV watching via the cable. So we can put all kinds of different channels on there. And this is something that you guys could use to look either on your computer or on your TVs if you're doing the online TV stuff. Classic movies, all kinds of stuff. One of the things they point out is that in the classic movies, you'll swear you're hearing same sound effects over and over again. And that's true, because it turns out certain sound effects that were recorded for some movies been repeated over and over again in other movies. One in particular is this thing called the Wilhelm scream. Goes back to many years back. It was recorded for some horror movie, and has since been in up to 400 films since then, and TV programs. So you can't replace a good scream these days. You got to use what's the classic. So on this website, you can hear that and many, many more. This is Open Culture website. Just go to there. If I click on that, that might actually open it up. Are you seeing that? Can you see Open Culture on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So here's the website. Download 1,000+ digitized tapes of sounds from classic Hollywood films and TV. They've got all kinds of stuff out there. So take a look around. It's a good place to go and look for interesting things. All right. Advanced moon photography. This is the kind of thing you would think that was coming from NASA or some other government agency or something, but this is from a guy in Iraq. This is advanced moon photography, the most advanced moon photography ever. But he's a pretty patient guy. He spent 4 days of continuous moon observation and shooting. The image size is 708 gigabytes. Over 81,000 images were stacked And if you don't know about photography and photography post-processing, stacking, it would be in this case probably both stacking for image resolution and for lighting. What you do is you take a whole bunch of pictures one after the other and then stack them on top of each other and let the software pick out the best parts of each one and merge them together. So what you end up with is something very, very amazing. He's got 4 different moon phases. The telescope was a home type telescope, and the camera was no big deal. It was a Canon EOS 1200D. These are not professional stuff. There's no artificial intelligence involved. The image resolution was 159.7 megapixels. So this is a mighty big photograph. So this is what the moon looks like if it was on a flat disk with mountains on it. So here's one image. You go to this website, you can go to these and you can zoom in on them and see them even better than here. But here's one image, and obviously this is much clearer than anything I've ever seen before in the way of photographs of the moon. And here's another image. But make you think that perhaps if NASA had these before the US landed on the moon, they could have had a better chance of choosing a nice flat spot because the tremendous resolution of these photographs. But they're on Instagram. There's the link. When I send the PDF of this, it'll have all these links in it, so you can go there and check them out. So amazing, clear pictures of the moon. All right, 7 innovations that came out of World War II. So according to some studies, there tends to be a significant decline in inventiveness immediately after the outbreak of war, followed by a marked surge. But it's hard to say whether that's really true. Prosperous, peaceful, and free societies tend to be inventive in any case. So there's lots of technological innovation took place during World War II, but this one just points out 7 particular items amongst all of those. The first one being duct tape. And there's a story of duct tape. A woman who was working in a plant that was packaging ordnance for the military, for the Navy. The boxes were sealed with paper tape with tabs, with a pull tab. And some of the pull tabs would have a tendency to tear off. And she thought it'd be better if they had a cloth tape that would not break, would not be subject to that, and they would be able to be opened quickly if needed. She sent this in a letter to the president. The president was impressed and sent it to the War Production Board, who went about coming up with duct tape. So a woman working in a wartime job essentially came up with that idea. Radar was another big one. It was during World War II that it really became fully developed. And of course, that was really important to Britain because they had all these bombers coming over, and the necessity of seeing where they are and watching them and being able to shoot at them was a good idea. But it also led to the invention of the radar range, the microwave oven. And the reason I say the radar range was that this was one of the very first microwave ovens. Right now, that one in particular has a bit of a story. When those first came out back in the probably in the early 70s, I bought one for my wife for Christmas. And I have a neighbor 2 doors down the street, and he bought one for his wife as well. And each of us told our wives that it was the other guy's wife's gift, so that she wouldn't know it was for her. So I'm telling my wife, this is the gift for my neighbor's wife, and he's telling the same thing to his wife. So it didn't completely work out. The wives figured it out eventually before Christmas, but they were happy with the gifts because it was an amazing thing. That was the first microwave in the house, and it did what it was supposed to do. So that was the microwave. That was the radar range. Other innovations: mass-produced penicillin saved a tremendous number of lives and was a tremendous secret during the war. Didn't want the Germans to get and the Japanese to know the secret of penicillin, because then they could get their wounded warriors back on the field quicker as well. jet engines, electronic computers. There's a nice picture there of one of the first laptops. Perhaps not a laptop, but a room-sized computer. Super glue, another one, and then the Slinky. Somebody worked, I read an article about this the other day. Somebody was doing some work with springs, and they dropped a spring on the floor and noticed that it seemed to start walking across the floor by itself, slinky-wise. It was starting to crawl across the floor. And he thought it was a good idea, and he went home and told his wife about it, and they put together a business and invented the Slinky and made money. So that was the invention of the Slinky. Every country's favorite ice cream flavor, just like every country has a favorite language they'd like to learn. Apparently, every country has their favorite ice cream flavors as well, according to Google search data. Now, it's kind of questionable. I'm not sure. How many of you would think that the Neapolitan would be your favorite ice cream? I mean, some people, yeah. I mean, apparently it's the big one because it shows up as the U.S. #1 flavor. So anyway, there it is. And but there's others, in some other places, Rocky Road and so forth. And over here, you've got strawberry, pistachio, and so forth. So this is you'll see this all in the material, but some places like vanilla, chocolate, what else? Strawberry and so forth. Anyway, lots of different flavors around the world. You can take a look and see what the ones are that you would like to go and visit. So maybe you go to a particular bubblegum flavor there in Kyrgyzstan. Bubblegum flavor. That's odd. Anyway, here's a guy filling out his ballot, and it reminded me of Arizona because we had a ballot that was so long that went to 2 pages this year. Made additional work in doing the ballot counting because there's 2 full pages with all the propositions. And this proposition says a vote of yes on this proposition means police and elected officials may indiscriminately punch us in the face. A no vote means they may only hit our legs with sticks. Now, of course, that's an absurd proposition, but the idea is there. There's so many of them that conflicting and strange things and hard to understand, and ones that are worded in such a way meet opposite of what they really mean. I just thought that was a kind of a cute way to put it.
Back here in Colorado, a little update on a story we brought you a couple weeks ago. A photographer had captured a really funny moment when a goat got on top of a parked car and started dancing around. Tonight, we get to hear from that photographer. Tony Keith has that story.
Dude, those are hoof prints. There was a goat on my car.
A Colorado woman got back from a hike at Mount Blue Sky in mid-July and was shocked to see what had happened to her car.
Oh my God. I wish I could have seen that. That is too funny.
Her wish was granted thanks to local photographer Michael Rhino.
So I pulled over and started photographing, particularly the babies. This time of the year, there's, the young ones are running around and frolicking on the rocks.
Despite 8 years of photography experience under his belt, Michael was forced to reach for his cell phone.
All of a sudden, a couple of the adults came up and started climbing up on the car.
Then this happened.
Never expected one of them to actually get up on the roof rack and start doing its little dance.
Capturing a moment fit for Colorado, a dancing goat on top of a Subaru. This had to go on social media.
At first, it was, okay, it's got 1,000 views. Wow, that's more than I think I had in most of my still images and so forth. And all of a sudden, when it got into the upper thousands, and then all of a sudden when it hits 1 million, 1.2 million or something like that, I think is where we're at now.
And it didn't take long for Michael to get connected with the owner of this car with a license plate that reads Glamp.
The Glamp word really is interesting that she has that as sort of her tagline when her camping is far from the glamorous type of camping that we think of as glamping.
Being able to share a moment that many wouldn't believe unless they saw it themselves.
Be sure to keep your eyes open and sort of look around in your environment. You never know what you might see.
I guess better the roof rack than the roof of the car. Car owner is Mindy Williford. Good on her for her chill attitude, because not everybody would be thrilled to find their car stomped on by a goat. There you go.
Well, that's Colorado for you. But Yeah, it's probably better than having it drop on the roof rack than on the car itself. Um, but I thought that was kind of cute, and it kind of shows that animals can have fun as well. That goat looked like it was really enjoying itself up there. Wasn't any particular purpose to it other than just kind of showing off and having fun.
Back
All right, dinosaurs were alive longer than they've been extinct. Dinosaurs have been extinct for 65 million years, but they were alive for 165 million years. Now, if you thought to think about that, what would humanity look like after we've been around for 165 million years? I kind of doubt it myself, but that was how long they were there. And if we put it into a one year on a 1 year calendar, if the dinosaurs had appeared on January 1st, they would have gone extinct the third week of September, and the humans wouldn't have shown up until December 31st. So they would have pretty much held the whole calendar there. So just a little trivia about dinosaurs and a link to that. Here's an idea here for rocket launching. The rockets are launched frequently from Florida, of course. You've got the Cape Canaveral and so forth, Cape Kennedy. All those rocket launches are providing quite a lot of pollution for the planet. You look, those darn clouds are there's not water vapor necessarily. That's tremendous amount of pollution going on there. But anyway, those take place all the time. So is there a better way to get something into orbit without having to have those first stage gigantic rockets flooding the atmosphere with various stuff? Well, there's a outfit in California that's working on something called SpinLaunch. The payloads had to be able to survive up to 10,000 Gs, and you'll see why in a moment. But it's an interesting way. It's a totally different way of launching a rocket. It doesn't use a first stage at all, but it works like this. There's an animation of it. It shows what they're doing. They haven't put one into orbit yet, but they've gone past all their tests so far. This is what the inside of one of their payloads would look like. You notice it's got a shroud that goes around it. Got to be able to protect it as it's being launched. Seal it up. I don't know what the scale of that is. You could probably find that out. But you can look in this link when you get it as well and see what it looks like. Doesn't look like the typical Florida style launch pad. Connecting it to this huge green donor. Starts rotating. Got a couple of big electric motors. Raise it up. Started spinning. It's like this, actually. like David and Goliath with the rock and the sling, swinging it around and letting it go. And there it is, putting a satellite in orbit without a first stage rocket. So I think they're trying to put one into orbit this year, I believe, 2025. So we'll see, but they're getting close. And then leading into that, 10 of the most historically significant aviation aircraft in aviation history, starting with Montgolfier Brothers balloon in 1783. Of course, this was lighter than air flight, and everybody at that point pretty much believed that heavier than air flight would not be possible. But it was, and here's just a few of the 10 aircraft. DC-3, first profitable passenger-carrying aircraft in commercial aviation history. My first flight was in a DC-3. I was working for an airline at Midway Airport in Chicago when I was in college. And so I had been there for a few months. And as part of the counter crew, I mean, I was checking passengers in and all, and I had a nice uniform. I had a blue uniform, or black uniform with blue badge with wings on the thing, and I had a cap with gold braid and everything. It looked kind of formal for a 19-year-old behind the counter. But one of the planes came in, and this was in the old days of what they called non-scud airlines. And so these were little airlines. One of these airlines were like individual pilots owned the plane. So this plane came in from St. Louis, I think, and landed in Chicago and heading to New York. And they came up to the counter, and he said to me, the captain said to me, how would you like to fly to New York and be the flight attendant? My stewardess needs to get some time off. So I said, well, I think I don't know. I've never been on a plane. I'd probably get airsick or something. He said, no, don't worry about it. You won't. So I made $50 that weekend flying to New York and back on a DC-3 and handing out box lunches to students and letting them go one at a time up into the cockpit because they could see out front. And of course, this thing flies below, 9,000 feet or so, so you could see a good view out in front. It was clear skies. So it was an exciting time. I did not get airsick, so it worked out well for me. And I made $50. And I was making $80 a week at the airline at that time, so it was like a nice bonus. Another aircraft, it was one of the 10 most significant, is the SR-71 Blackbird that holds all kinds of speed and altitude records. And I was a little bit involved in this as well because after college, I went to work for Elgin Watch Company, and my division was selling parts to the Skunk Works in Burbank, the airline manufacturing outfit. It was not Boeing, Douglas, I guess, in Burbank, and we were selling precision parts and things to them. So I got a little bit involved even in that. Of course, we didn't know it at the time because it was super secret. All right, a little thing here about how to freeze your credit if your information was leaked, or even if it wasn't leaked in a Social Security breach. Something you should do no matter what, because of all the stuff that's going on these days with all this scams and people getting their lives stolen from them and having their money taken away and all this kind of stuff that's going on. You should freeze your credit. And there are 3 credit bureaus. There are alternatives to this, including a credit lock and a fraud alert, but a credit freeze is the most effective. And all you have to do is go to each of the credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, go online, go to those 3, and sign up for a free account. They can't charge you for the account. They'll want to charge you. They like to sell you extra stuff. But just go for the free account, log in, get the free account, and then put a freeze on your account, on your account. Now, the freeze is easy to take off if you have to, but they'll give you a PIN number. You want to remember that. Keep track of your paperwork. Because if while your credit is frozen, if you want to get a new credit account, you'll have to unfreeze your account. And you can do that over the phone or by the internet. And you can do it for a fixed length of time. You can say, unfreeze my account for 24 hours. And then they'll do that. And that'll give the whatever company it is you're dealing with time to go and check your credit. And then they'll refreeze it automatically. So I would suggest you do that. I got both myself and my wife, both our credit accounts are frozen on all three. So, and I don't very often have to go in there, but if I do, it's easy. It's the top 10 smallest countries by population. We're not one of the smallest, of course. Dominica, 73,000 people. St. Kitts and Nevis down in the Caribbean. Marshall Islands out in Oceania, far out. Liechtenstein, 39,000 people. Imagine living in a country with only 39,000 people, or 36,000, or 33,000. Palau, another small one. Nauru. We're getting down to the tiny ones now. Tuvalu in Oceania. And finally, of course, Vatican City with 517. And that's it. 7 reasons why a Chromebook is the best laptop for most people. When we say most people, we don't mean if you are a heavy computer user, if you're doing digital photography editing, like with Photoshop, if you're tied up in Windows or Apple or Mac apps like Quicken or things like that have financial things. Some of the specialized stuff is not good for, but if what you do mainly is email, and you do banking online, and you do your social media, all that kind of stuff, all of that can be done easily with a Chromebook. And the Chromebook makes it so much easier because it has nothing, no muss, no fuss. Don't worry about updates. Don't worry about if the machine gets crunched and run over by a truck or something. It's simple to get back in business without anything. You can update to a new machine just in a few minutes. They've grown user-friendly. They've gotten more capable as we go along. And so there's a lot of good reasons why a Chromebook might be all you need. They're inexpensive. These are 2 that I looked at just lately. Chromebook Flip, $373. Chromebook Plus for $289. And these are both highly rated. They're user-proof, hard to mess them up. No matter your experience level, you can sit down and start using it because you already know a browser. You know how to use the browser. So this is just works in there. And people, and you can get on your Zoom meetings with it. And I talked to somebody this morning, Bill James. I think he said he's done a couple of Zoom presentations using his Chromebook. So that's also doable. So they're good in a lot of ways like that. They're fast. They boot up real quick. If you want a fast laptop at a reasonable price, it's a Chromebook. Chromebooks are reliable. There's been very little problems with it in the past. It's mostly a web browser masquerading as an OS, but you can run Linux apps on it. You can run Android apps on it. Very flexible. It's automatically, so when you're on a Chromebook, everything is automatically saved onto Google's cloud servers. This leaves your on-device storage free for any stuff you want to bring down yourself. They have small solid-state drives. If you ever decide to upgrade your laptop, you won't have to transfer files or anything. You just get a new one. There was a good story about a guy that was recently was a reporter for one of the tech websites, and he was at a technology show where new products were being introduced. And he had a Chromebook with him, which is how he was using it to record the information that he got about the various products. And the Chromebook crashed on him. It failed hardware-wise. He didn't have to do anything. He just went down to Best Buy and bought a new one, took it back into the show, and logged into his Google account. And he was back online running exactly the same as he left it. So it's no uptime, no downtime there. And there's a file sync feature. If you want to bring some files down to do some work offline, you can do it. But you may never have to do that. You may not ever have to run into that. And they're secure. Every time you boot it up, it checks to make sure that the system is correct. There's not been tampered with in any way. In the 10-year history, there's only been 57 Chrome OS security exploits, and you won't need antivirus or anti-malware or any of that kind of stuff. So when new updates are available, they automatically get installed from the Google Chrome store. And they can be easily restored. As I mentioned, you can get a new one and just start up where you left off. Or if yours seems to have a problem, you could do what's called a power wash, which is a factory reset. And once it starts up, it's right back to where you started. You're still back in with all your stuff. You always have to have your password for your Google account, or your Gmail account. So it's not for serious video editing, audio recording, and stuff like that, but for almost a regular daily workload for the average human being, that's something you can use, and it's easier and better than Windows or any of these others. Here's the world's 10 longest bridges. Interestingly enough, there's some in the U.S., but a lot of them in China. Here's one in the U.S. Here's Wuhan Metro Bridge. We heard a lot about Wuhan a couple of years ago. There's another one in Louisiana, Lake Pontchartrain. Another one in China, Beijing Grand Bridge. And the Bang Na Expressway in Bangkok, Thailand. Another one in China. Another one in China, number 4. Number 3, between Beijing and Shanghai in China. Number 2, in Taiwan. And number 1 in China, of course. We'll have later on show you where those are coming from. You see there's a lot of stuff you can get that's interesting from that website. 40 charts that are kind of interesting, infographic charts. Instead of just a graph of numbers and lines and so lines and bars and so forth, infographics are much more eye catchers. They draw the interest in. A few of them are life essentials like picking the right apple and laundry cycles, and may also come across a handful that come in handy one day, like Germany's cultural do's and don'ts, or pricing psychology tips to help you sell more stuff. So here are just a few that I picked out. One I thought was interesting, a cool guide to equality, equity, and justice, breaking it down differently. Reality, one gets more than is needed while others get less than is needed. I guess in a country where there's an ever-increasing number of billionaires and millionaires, we can definitely say that there are people that have more than they need, and definitely not a people that don't have as much as they need. So that's the reality. Equality says everybody gets the same benefits, but that doesn't raise everybody as much. Equity is everybody gets the support they need, and justice is there's causes of inequality were addressed and the system barrier has been removed. So just an interesting little way of looking at that. A cool guide to the evolution of the alphabet. This kind of shows you where over time the letters have come that finally ended up with our current alphabet. Who knows? Maybe it'll continue to change over time. A very cool short how to jump a car guide. It's one of these that you could just print it off and have it somewhere. How to jump a car. 20 states, this is not 27 states, but the number, these are states that have a smaller population than Los Angeles County. A good part of Los Angeles County is on fire right now, so it's not to be envied for that. But more population there than there is in these individual states. I did a presentation a while back on the invention of the they call it the telegraph. The telegraph, what was referred to as the Victorian internet in some cases, the telegraph. So the telegraph used these symbols, used these signals for their letters. And somebody then went in and invented this cute little thing here. Starting in the middle, you can go anywhere and find any letter. So for the letter T is one dash. The letter E is one dot. If you go all the way down to the X, it is dash, dot, dot, dash. So there's a way to read telegraph code. If you ever find somebody sending you a telegraph message in Morse code, you'll see that. And another one was a cool guide to understanding if you're living in the past, present, or future based on your feelings and thoughts. It's one you might spend a few moments on just kind of looking it over. Future, if you're living in the future, fear of the unknown, worrying about what could happen and so forth. Living in the past, guilt, shame, regret, and so forth. So just an interesting way of putting those things into a visual context. Here's the top 10 countries with increasing forest areas, increasing rather than decreasing. Now you notice they compare it to various places, like in this case, Belfast or Bolton, wherever that is. Well, this came from BBC, from the Science Focus magazine, which is a product of the BBC, British. So all of the places that they're comparing to are places in Great Britain. So Cardiff in Chile, 25 times the size of Dundee, 61 times the size of Luton. It would make more sense to you if you knew the size of those places, I suppose. 16 times the size of Birmingham, but the numbers are 19,730 square kilometers. So countries that have increasing forest areas, which is good. Now, a little bit about artificial intelligence. Can't do anything without artificial intelligence these days. If you're not using any artificial intelligence, or if you know somebody who is not comfortable with it, here are a few things that are either they may be using and they don't realize it, or you don't realize it, or that maybe you want to look at and try a little bit more of. So these are some apps to look at. Introduce them to yourself, your parents, elder relatives, and so forth. They're simple enough things that you can do them and easy enough to get at. Now, ChatGPT, there's been in the news the other day because they said that the guy who blew up the Tesla truck in front of the Trump Tower, I guess it was, had used ChatGPT to plan part of his operation there. No dispersion on ChatGPT, I guess, but it's something he did. It's developed by OpenAI, and it's great for interactive conversations. I have used ChatGPT and Google's Gemini both for putting together presentations. When I've come up with an idea and I said, yeah, I'd like to have a presentation about this or that, before I get started doing my research, I might go into one of these and give it a long, detailed question and say, I want it this is a presentation for some seniors, members of a computer club. I want this topic and I want to stay away from that topic. And can you tell me what I could do to put together a 25-page presentation on that? And give it a couple of minutes, and I'll come back and a lot of times have some pretty good bullet points that I can use to help build a PowerPoint with. So these are both good transitions to AI because they're simple. You just go to them and the links are here. You just go there and start playing around. You can ask it to give you pictures or give you text or get a conversation going. Google Maps uses quite a lot of AI, offering real-time route planning and traffic updates. And if you remember TripTiks in the good old days, we used those all the time for travel back in the 70s and the 60s. And I remember driving along and, I'd be driving maybe, or my wife would, and one of us would be turning over the page to the next page of the TripTik and see what towns are coming up and so forth. But now you've got your Google Maps, and the Google Maps will tell you what's going on, and it'll also tell you real-time traffic and all that kind of good stuff. And you can find places to visit. And Waze is related to that because Google now owns the Waze, and that has more stuff too. It talks about notifications for crash-prone roads. It'll tell you if these roads are not safe and so forth. Leverages AI for crash history alerts as well as your ETA prediction. Grammarly, in case you happen to be in the process of writing the great American novel. I think once we're retired, we should all try to write the great American novel. And so if you're writing a novel or short story or just a letter to somebody, use Grammarly to have it help you with the grammar and get the best out of your writing. And U.com is another one that's a good AI assistant. Has a lot of features similar to ChatGPT and so forth. Oops. And the last one then here is Microsoft Copilot, which should be on, if you've got a Windows computer, it'll be probably on your taskbar. All you have to do is click on that and bring it up, and it'll create pictures for you. I've used it to create images for my newsletter for the club and for other things, and it does a lot of good stuff. Microsoft Copilot. You could also use it in place of ChatGPT and so forth. Those are all competition. They're all competing with each other. Here's the 10 countries with the speediest internets. Now, I don't know about you, but we've got a cable system here. I've got Sparklight cable. Do all our TV watching and everything on cable. So I've got a 600 megabit connection. For $10 more a month, they give me a gigabit, but the 600 is already way more than I need, so I'm not going to give them the $10. Switzerland had 110 average, Iceland 116. And there's a lot of parts of this country, of course, don't have internet access at all, but Luxembourg 118. Just gives you some examples of things you could download in a few seconds. That you download the movie Speed in 26 seconds in Gibraltar. You download the 4K extended Lord of the Wings trilogy in 130 seconds in Andorra. If you happen to be there. In Jersey, you could download the Jersey Boys in 10.4 seconds. And in Liechtenstein, S Club 7's greatest hits album best in 0.75 seconds. Now here's the location of where a lot of that stuff came from. Now we have access at our public library to something called Libby, Libby. Check your library and see if that's available to you, because your library is free, so all the stuff they offer is free. And this is something that will get you this magazine and many other magazines that you can look at if you might be interested in certain things, or if you're interested in different hobbies and so forth. Instead of subscribing to these magazines, a lot of them you can get for free at your library if you know where to look. But Libby is one of the apps the libraries have to have some of these. So this is our library here, but go look at your own library and see what they've got in the way of resources available to you for free. You may be surprised to find out how much stuff there is there. Here is Ned and Irene's analog search engine. Old school information. If we don't know it, you don't need it. Advice given without being asked. So here's a couple people sitting behind the counter. They got a box of maps on the counter ready to go and give you the real information. Now, before FedEx and UPS, there was Railway Express Agency. I remember this well from when I was a kid. It's where you get your things came from Sears when you order something from the Sears catalog. Probably come via REA Express. But it was very much like the modern time. They had their fleet of trucks, but they were getting everything by train instead of by over-the-road trucking or airlines. But similar, but not nearly as widespread. But before FedEx and UPS, there it was. Of course, they had cigarette ads on the side too there in the good old days, REA Express. And I thought this one was appropriate too. Oh, how cute. He says, they say its name is malware. Gift came in here, the first download. The Trojan horse, the first download. Yeah. Visualize, comparing the Titanic to a modern cruise ship. A little more infographics here. Little picture showing the difference between the Titanic and a modern cruise ship. Heaven forbid one of these should go down in the middle of the ocean somewhere. But of course, they've got these days, hopefully enough boats and things on board in a much safer variety. But that's just a nice website to take a look at and get some comparisons of various things. 46,000 passengers here and 46,000 tons, 228,000 tons here. So amazing differences. Here's a video that talks a little bit about it. I'm going to play just a little bit of it. You can play the rest of it later so we don't get too late here. I've taken a couple of cruises. I was down on the Caribbean Islands at the time. I was on an All of America ship, and one of these other humongous ships was over next to us on the other side of the pier from ours, and made the All of America ship look like a toy compared to one of these humongous things like this. And these are people down here to give you a sense of the scale. But anyway, I'll move on from there.
JB, are you getting towards the end? We're kind of long here.
Pardon me?
Are you getting towards the end? Because we're long.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to be done in just a couple minutes. That's why I started skipping through these videos. This is a little bit about some of the new robotics from Boston Dynamics that can be given more detailed instructions to work on their own. I remember the earliest videos of robots we had from 10 years ago or so was mostly videos of robots falling down when they were being tested. And they don't do that anymore. But this one here is a robot. And the one thing I can show you about this is that it's built in such a way, not only is it intelligent enough to be able to do a series of jobs, but watch its body and how it works. The concept of turning around and doing something is quite different when your top and your bottom are not physically kept in the same plane. He just did a 360 there. Here's a website. Go to this website here. Just click on this and you'll get facts. Amazing fact generator. Get you interesting facts of various kinds. And then it goes to the end. So as advertised, I'm at the end. So there.
All right, Ann, you want to wrap it up with a few questions and then we'll call it a night.
Yeah, if there's any questions.
Oh my gosh, that was the most fantastic presentation, JB. My gosh. Questions galore, but I imagine there's some people here that have some questions for you. So is there anybody here?
And I'm up. I got my hand up.
Good. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, JB, thank you so much. That was really, really good. Again, that's a lot of research. The question I had was on Chromebooks. Can you also use it as a Kindle?
Yeah, because you can put there's a Kindle Android app, I'm sure. I know that because I've got Kindle on my phone, and that's an Android app, and you can put Android apps on your Chromebook because it's a
Right.
Google product. So yeah, you can do that.
I got to replace my old Kindle reader, so I'm looking for something I can use, and
Yeah,
that may be a good option.
Yeah, it works pretty much the same. I don't think you can't direct a book directly to it, but you can go into your library and pull.
Yeah, I go to my library and download it. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can just download them to your Chromebook.
Thank
Yes,
you.
good use.
Yeah.
Any others? Any other questions?
Steve Parker.
Pardon me?
Yeah, that one with the moon. What was the image file format for that? Was it a compressed image or was it an uncompressed one?
And the moon pictures?
Yeah.
It
was like what, 700 gigs for one image? Wow.
Yeah, they're
That was
huge.
a JPEG. It would be.
Yeah, if we go to that website, I suspect that's probably a downscaled image. because I suspect it would take you, very long time just to load it to see it on your screen, because it would be so big to download to your computer. It might blow out might blow out the memory in your computer. But yeah, go to that website. The link will be in there. I'll get this off to you tomorrow. I'll get this off to you tomorrow as a PDF file, and the PDF will have all the links in it. And so you can just click on those and go directly to where they are shown online.
Yeah, I think the biggest image I ever worked on was about 500 megabyte JPEG, and it took half an hour just to load the image into memory.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know. The bigger the image, that's certainly if you're doing editing and so forth, that's why some of those new online NVIDIA chips and so forth that are better at screen work are good, but it still takes a long time to load. Any other questions? Hopefully the links.
I have one. I'm curious about your background. It looks surrealistic. Is that your real a study room?
Oh, no, actually it's one of those many places I go occasionally. I get a bug and I go online and I'll start looking for interesting library rooms and interesting dens and so forth to make it look like I'm in a really high class place. As it is, I'm actually sitting in a tent outside underneath a overpass and hoping it doesn't rain tonight. So no, this is just a nice picture that I picked out from somewhere that I thought was really kind of nice looking. I've got a bunch of others, but I keep coming back to this one. In fact, I got some of them that are some of the famous old libraries in Europe and in monasteries and things that are just incredibly elegant. But this one looks homier.
I'm glad I asked. I like your response.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Anybody else? I used to have more fun when I did these in person because I have a tendency to get off on tangents and do silly things and stuff, but I can't do it quite as much on Zoom. You notice I've made a few statements that were not particularly truthful sounding, but seemed like fun at a time.
JB, you can come back anytime at all. Are there any other questions before we say goodnight? And thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, when's he gonna do the next presentation?
There you go.
Well, just take a look on the list, and I'll say maybe you guys might have not seen the one on the invention of the telegraph, which I think is very interesting, and it's very much technological because it's an awful lot of starts and stops and things that are very parallel to the development of the internet itself. So you might want to sign up for that one. That's on Judy's list.
Actually, have you ever heard of a really good it was a British series called Connections? It was done by a presenter called James Burke.
James Burke, which is my name, actually. Yes, I have watched. There's two of them. The old one from a long time back, watched it when it was originally on PBS or somewhere, and then a newer one. There was a later one that came out.
Yeah, he just did a fourth series that just came out not long ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I love those because he does such brilliant connections that just you wouldn't think of. You wouldn't think of how, something, whatever it is, led to the invention of air conditioning or something. He had tremendous ability to put together not obvious connections on technology. So yeah, James Burke, my own same name, no relation, unfortunately.
You could claim him, we wouldn't know.
Well, except the accent would give him away.
Yeah. And if I did an accent, it would be more of an Irish accent. It'd be more of a brogue. Yeah.
Well, actually, the other James Burke, he was the presenter for the NASA moonshots as well.
Yeah.
And he was working with the BBC, and he did it for
the
moon.
Yeah, amazing guy. Yeah. Yep. I wish
We loved your accent, and we loved what you had to say to us tonight. And I think all of us are going to look forward to getting that presentation so that we can go through it slowly and absorb more. So thank you again, JB, for being here tonight.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. So thank you to everybody for coming for our first this is our first meeting of the new year, and we look forward to seeing you all again next month.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.